I think in America, we need to be able to go just as far as our talent and our commitment will take us in whatever it is. It doesn't matter whether it's science or literature or athletics or what. I think we need to provide our young people with the opportunities to just see how far they can really go, what they can accomplish, how good they can get at whatever thing that it is they enjoy. And we were denied that, and so that was a big-time major mistake, I think, on the part of the politicians of Mississippi. And it was a very bitter disappointment.
This is the story of a basketball game that captured the national imagination and influenced the state and sport for years to come. This is the story of an unwritten rule that fostered prejudice and segregation. This is the story of how a university president, his head basketball coach, and their players risked their safety and their future by defying that rule, a governor and legislature, in 1963 Mississippi. This story took place one night in March. Mississippi, January 1963. The violence of the enrollment of James Meredith at Ole Miss the previous fall still reverberated throughout the state. Segregation was the law of the land. But on the campus of Mississippi State University, attention was focused on the basketball court. The Bulldogs, following their SEC championship runs in 1961 and 1962, started the 62-63 season 8-2. Wins on the hardwood were expected for Coach Babe McCarthy's powerhouse program. State would begin the defense of their crown in open conference play with a trip to Auburn. That would be the first step toward a historic season for the Bulldogs. Mississippi State captured their first SEC title in 1959. The team was anchored by senior All-American center Bailey Howell and posted a final record of 24-1. Including a win over Adolph Rupp's Kentucky Wildcats in Starkville. But that team was prohibited from playing in the NCAA tournament at season's end to decide the national championship.
At Mississippi State, we were ranked in the top, I think, five teams in the nation that last year. We were the best team in the Southeast, for sure.
An unwritten rule barred the white-only universities in the state from playing against integrated teams. By virtue of their SEC titles in 59, 61, and 62, Mississippi State received invitations to play in the NCAA tournament each year. And each time, the invitation was declined.
We won the SEC our sophomore year and couldn't go, and we forgot about it. Went on home, went about our own business. Same thing our junior year. That's just the way we were raised, not to rebel, against authority.
All of us always felt like we were good enough to play with the guys that were winning national championships during those years.
We didn't think we were going to have it. We're going to get to go to the national tournament, and we didn't dwell on it and didn't, it was just something we accepted.
The 63 team finished 22-6 with a 12-2 mark in the SEC that year. Along the way, they defeated Kentucky, LSU, and Ole Miss, and number 7 ranked Georgia Tech in Starkville. State defeated number 10 ranked Auburn on the road. The Bulldogs dropped just 2 conference games that season, on the road in Alabama and Florida. After defeating Tulane on February 25th, the Bulldogs had clinched no less than a tie for their 3rd straight SEC championship and earned the right to represent the conference in the NCAA tournament. That year, the NCAA tournament issued just 25 invitations to conference champions and highly ranked independent teams. But because of the unwritten rule, it seemed that the team had nowhere to go from there.
We thought we were going to be the best team in the SEC in 62, 63. And basically we just played, I think, to win the SEC without any NCAA expectation.
As you play the games, as you win them, as you win your conference, then you begin to wonder Why can't we go to that next level?
61, 62, we never talked about going to NCAA. 62, 63, we did. You know, we really, really wanted to play that year.
Georgia Tech, then an SEC member, had placed second to MSU and expected to travel to the national championship of college basketball. Assuming that State would spurn the NCAAs again, Georgia Tech prepared to represent the conference in the tournament. It looked like a repeat of the 1959, 61, and 62 seasons when State sat at home, declining its earned invitation to the national tournament, while league runner-up Kentucky went in their place.
We were all pretty disgruntled, simply because we didn't get to go. Kentucky got to go, you know, in our place. It was like, we won it, they get to go. It's
Unknown to the players, the leadership of Mississippi State had decided to take a stand and defy the racist rule that had held them back for so long. 15 minutes before the last conference game at Ole Miss on March 2nd, Mississippi State University President Dean W. Culver announced that, unless hindered by competent authority, I shall send our basketball team to NCAA competition. The Bulldogs went on to defeat their in-state rival that night and secure another SEC crown. The university had until March 5th to officially accept the bid. The historic event was set into motion.
I remember a team meeting when Dr. Colbert addressed us, and we had already been told by Coach McCarthy what the situation was and some of the difficulties that were expected. I think hearing it from Dr. Colbert simply emphasized what Coach McCarthy had already told us.
So he was walking into a hornet's nest when he decided to do that, and knew, of course, that it was a tough decision for him, but he also knew that it was the right decision for him and the right decision for Mississippi State and the right decision for the state of Mississippi.
He really took a stand for us. You know, he said we felt that we deserved it. He felt we were the kind of team that would represent the university well and all, and that he was going to do everything that he could do as president of the school to see that we got to go.
He was kind of a man ahead of his time. I mean, this was indicative of everything that he did. He was willing to, as you say, put it all on the line in terms of the legislature, Coach McCarthy. He felt it was important for the university, for the growth of that university, that we take another step. And that step was to play black athletes if we were afforded the opportunity.
If you look at what Dean Culver wrote in his diary and his papers, he knew that the unwritten law suffered its fatal blow when James Meredith got into Ole Miss. Because the whole reason for the unwritten law was what? It was to, if you keep the athletic competition segregated, therefore you'll keep the schools segregated. Crazy as that sounds in this day and age. So when James Meredith did that, what were they protecting? You know, Dean Culver found his end.
On March 4th, the State College Board announced it would hold a special meeting to consider Dr. Culver's decision to send the team to the tournament. Mississippi Governor Ross Barnett waded into the debate, saying he opposed State's participation when it became apparent that the men would face black players.
Personally, I feel it is not for the best interest of Mississippi State University or the state of Mississippi or either of the races.
But while officials opposed the team playing against black players, the public supported the action. Messages of support flooded Culver's office from alumni and citizens across the state.
I had a professor, an English professor, who I had as a freshman. He stopped me on campus one day and he said, "Jodan, don't worry tell the boys not to worry about whether you get to use public money or not." He said, "We have enough private pledges that if Coach McCarthy and Dr. Culver want to go to the tournament, then you'll be able to go."
Dr. Culver quietly secured donations from local banks to circumvent the anticipated legal objection to using state funds for the trip. Local businesses in Starkville declared their support for the team in newspaper ads. Students petitioned and marched in support of the NCAA outing.
But I would have to say that 99% of our student body now was fully behind sending us to the tournament, and they let Dr. Culver know that.
On March 9th, the College Board voted 8-3 to allow the 6th-ranked Bulldogs to participate in the tournament. They passed a vote of confidence in Dr. Culver by a margin of 9-2. Just when it looked like things would go smoothly, 2 state senators decided to put an end to state season, and the unwritten rule came out in the open.
On the afternoon of the showdown, Robert Walkup, the minister of the First Presbyterian Church of Starkville, who was a good friend of mine, Bob called me in my office and told me what was going on at the college, and that they were concerned about what Governor Barnett was going to do. He asked me if I had any connections that would enable me to find out behind the scenes what the plans were in the governor's office. So I called around, and I found to my dismay that the governor and those advising him were intent on doing whatever they could to forestall the departure of the Mississippi State team to East Lansing, Michigan.
State Senator Billy Mitz and former Senator B.W. Larson filed a request in Chancery Court in Union, some 75 miles southwest of the campus, for an injunction prohibiting the team from leaving the state. The judge granted the injunction. A last-minute hurdle was thrown into the fray. While State College Board and MSU officials hoped to dissolve the injunction, Dr. Culver, Athletic Director Wade Walker, and Coach Babe McCarthy decided to leave town late the night of March 13th. Culver drove east to Alabama. McCarthy and Walker headed north, first to Memphis, then on to Nashville to avoid any encounters with law enforcement.
I do remember the president and vice president leaving, and Coach McCarthy and Coach Walker, Wade Walker, the AD, getting out of town.
Because we thought the injunction would probably be made out against one of them.
Meanwhile, the plan was hatched to ensure that the team could leave Starkville without incident the morning of March 14th.
It was in Leland's room, where we sat and talked and planned and said, what are we going to do, what if, and what. So I think at some point early in that evening, all the guys began to say, hey, well, let's get our bags packed. And I'm not so sure that the guys would not have gone had Babe not been able to get there. I don't know that Leland or Joe Dan might have actually been the coach there if they had been prevented. I think the Mississippi State basketball team was going.
It was decided that the team would split up into 2 teams. Actually, the first 6 players, first team and the 6th man, would stay behind, and the other players would go to the airport first.
We snuck out early one morning. Our trainer, Dutch Lutzinger, took part of the team over to the airport.
A certain group of us, I'll say we, and I was in that group, that we were going to go first. We were honestly expecting to be arrested. That's really what we thought would happen.
The alternate was to fly out of a little private airport out of Starkville between Mayhew and Starkville.
And then when they got out there, they called the rest office, and we hustled out there and got on the plane.
The plane was out there waiting for us. I sort of had hope that we were going to be able to get on there and go at that time.
And even the point in time when we took off from the airport, the big yell, it was like we were cheerleaders because we were excited about being able to get off the ground.
When wheels up, that was a happy time, yes. Because we always had that feeling that, we just aren't going to make it, aren't going to make it. Oh, we did. Cool.
Later that afternoon, after the team had left, the Mississippi Supreme Court suspended the court order. The Bulldogs were legally cleared to play in the tournament. The team plane stopped in Nashville to get McCarthy and Walker and proceeded on to East Lansing, Michigan, the site of their opening round game. The uncertainty of the court order, the political intrigue of the previous 2 weeks, combined with the state's racial reputation, led to wild speculation about whether the team from Mississippi would make it to the game.
As we were getting off the plane, there were photographers everywhere and reporters, and they began to tell us of the different stories that we heard, that you were arrested and the whole team was put in jail before you took off, that after you got in flight that you were sent back home.
As we arrived, there was a contingent of people waiting at the airport for us, local people who were cheering us on and were very pleased that we had made the move that we had.
There was a good crowd. It was It was a totally unexpected to me. I didn't expect anybody to be there.
Comment was made several times that we feel like we're playing on our home court. When we hit the court for the first ball game against Loyola, as I recall, the Mississippi State fight song was the only fight song that was played by the local band there as the teams hit the court.
State would face Loyola of Chicago in the tournament. The Ramblers had endured their own drama en route to the tournament. The team started 4 black players in an era where minority participation in major college basketball was scarce. They experienced a variety of racial incidents on their way to a regular season record of 24 wins and 2 losses. Loyola dispatched their first-round foe, Tennessee Tech, 111-42. They would meet State in the second round.
As we talked to some of the Loyola guys, they didn't know if we'd arrive, who they would have played, and in terms of if we'd even get there, whether we'd have 6 or whether we'd have 12. But when we got there and we practiced, and when we came out on the floor that night and they played Hell State, I mean, it just kind of, should I say, sent chills up your spine.
The game was played March 15th in front of 12,000 spectators at Michigan State University's Jennison Fieldhouse. The pre-game handshake between MSU's Joe Dan Gold and Loyola's captain Gerald Harkness was historic.
When Joe Dan Gold and I, the 2 captains, meet at half court, I look him in the eye and he looks me in the eye and he gave me a little grin. And I almost felt him saying, "We made it and we are glad to be here to play against you guys."
When we walked out there and were shaking hands, it seemed like, I don't know how many, it just seemed like it all lit up out there with everybody taking pictures of it.
I got startled a little bit, and then I got warm inside, and I realized this is more than a game. At that time, I said, this is history.
That was probably a fairly significant moment in time. I think all we were thinking was throw the ball up and let's get it underway.
State opened the game with a 7-0 lead, but Loyola caught up midway through the first half.
Coach McCarthy felt like it was time for us to slow the tempo down a little bit. We did, and it didn't take but about 5 minutes for them to catch up, and we never seemed to recover after that.
And they came back, and I think they were up probably 8 or 10 at half, and just pretty much the second half was about a break-even half.
State got as close as 30-27, but Loyola stretched out another 10-point lead. With about 11 minutes left in the game, the Bulldogs made a final run and brought the score to within 3 at 41-38.
It was a down-to-the-wire game until Leland Mitchell, who was undoubtedly our best all-around player, fouled out with about 4 minutes to go, and that kind of, sealed our fate.
State fought hard, but lost the game 61-51.
Well played, 2 hard-fought teams. Close game, closer than people thought it would be, and had all the respect in the world for the guys.
I don't think there was anything ever said on the floor, among the players and all. You could have never asked for a better played game. They played hard, we played hard.
One thing I will say is we'd already played our game when we got there. The emotional drainage that came from us and not knowing, yes you are, no you're not, yes you are. It really worked on us.
I think we could have won on any given night. They had a great ball club, had some good All-Americans on that ball club, and I think they deserved to win the overall that year as they did.
The Ramblers advanced on to ultimately win the title. The Loyola squad made its own history by becoming the first team with black starters to claim a basketball national championship. The Bulldogs went on to place 3rd in the regional by defeating Bowling Green 65-60, despite the loss of Joe Dan Gold, who had broken a finger against Loyola. The team returned to a hero's welcome with more than 1,000 fans greeting them when they arrived back in Starkville. The team that had to leave town in a cloak of secrecy was celebrated in the open.
People had met us at the airport, super people, just happy that we had played as well as we did. Everybody was a little bit sad that we didn't beat Loyola, but that's the way it goes.
I think the important part was the fact that we were able to do something to support what some folks here in the state believed in. and that is that everybody was equal and we ought to be able to go play.
I didn't expect what we got because we lost, but it was like we won when we got back, and I guess for the state we did. We won. That was a good deal. That was something that needed to be done. Mississippi needed to move on.
The significance of the MSU-Loyola game resonated for years to come. Integration at Mississippi State became a peaceful reality with the admission of Richard Holmes in 1965, a stark contrast to the unrest occurring in the state earlier in the 60s. On December 1st, 2003, MSU hired Sylvester Croom to head its football program. The hiring was a landmark event as it marked the first time an African American was selected to head the Southeastern Conference football program. Once again, the eyes of the nation were on Mississippi State as it made history.
The other thing I want to make sure that everybody understands, I am the first African American coach in the SEC. But there ain't but one color that matters here, and that color is maroon.
– 50 years later, 23% of the enrollment at Mississippi State is African American, a percentage that leads the SEC. The next closest institution checks in at 17%. Most are languishing in single digits. It's a tangible legacy of Calvert and McCarthy's courageous decision that helped lead toward racial equality.
Mississippi gets a lot of bad press, got a lot of bad press back then. When that happens, you tend to overlook the good press that's out there, the good people that are doing the right things. And I think the activities that we've just described, the 63 trip to East Lansing, Michigan, probably was something that focused on the good press out there. It focused on the good people and the people who wanted to do the right things.
We proved that on the basketball court, the color doesn't matter. Nothing matters. If you can play the game, you play the game.
It enabled Mississippi State University to get beyond color as a defining factor, whether it's in jobs, whether it's in coaching, whatever it might be. And I saw that. Now, we still have some problems. There's still some of the old mentality there.
It is Mississippi at its best in an era in which Mississippi was too often at its worst. This is the first time that average Mississippians could see folks that were like them, folks they could identify with, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids, and Babe McCarthy, who they loved, they could see them doing the right thing. And so it was no longer a governor, a state legislature, or John Kennedy or Bobby Kennedy. It was none of that. It was guys that were from towns that they were from. So I think it personalized it on a level that I think made it very significant.
But the story doesn't end there. What was once a little-known historical footnote blossomed into a well-known story of courage. Almost 50 years after the two teams met in East Lansing, Michigan, they took the floor again, this time on campus at Loyola. Much had changed since that historical game. State's new coach, Rick Ray, is the school's first minority to head the program. The once all-white team now has a starting lineup composed of African-American young men from around the South.
You hear the name Mississippi and you always think about negative connotations with race relations, and now you got a situation where you can teach the younger guys about like Mississippi State having a positive effect on the game of basketball and race relations. And the thing that's a story to me is that it's not a story, you know, and that's how much progress we've actually made.
When people sitting in the stands can look down there and see African Americans and Caucasians playing together, both of them making each other better, it tells you something. I mean, it's played an important role in Mississippi.
I'd like to think that maybe us going to the tournament improved race relations as well as speeding up integration of our athletic teams in colleges.
Those original players were there that December night in Chicago, soaking up the cheers and accolades about their part in one of the most important basketball games in collegiate sports history.
handshake at half court between the captain of Mississippi State, Joe Dan Gold, and the captain of Loyola, the great Jerry Harkness, who alone has lived in American history.
After all the cheers and celebrations, the echoes from that one night in March still ring true.
One Night in March is available on DVD or Blu-ray, including interviews and footage not seen on the broadcast, for $19.95 plus $3 shipping and handling. Order online at www.onenightinmarch.com. Mississippi residents, please add 7% sales tax. Offer made by Mississippi Public Broadcasting.